Cheers. So I don't know if you guys do this, but I drink salt water in the morning.
Oh, you told me about that.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so I follow this welcome to Unlikely Conversations. And we should talk about that. Maybe that could be our do you have an icebreaker, Genevieve?
Oh, she always
Maybe
has
that-
good ones.
I know she really does.
Genevieve has that. Good ones.
So good
I'm
morning,
just
welcome to Unlikely Conversations. I always forget to do the intro, like the disclaimer that we are just three lovely young women who enjoy speaking with each other, and we just want to share our experiences with you guys. And we're here to talk about hard topics, like things that people don't really want to talk about and don't usually talk about out loud. And so we just want to put this out here and say that we are not advising this as medical advice. We are not doctors. We're not diagnosing. We are just simply sharing experiences so that you guys can feel connected. Really, that's our main point, right? Like we love to be here because we feel connected, and it really
yes.
does help to talk about hard conversations. So know this, that if you are in a hard place, we are here for you. Like we can get you the resources that you need. We can make suggestions on places you can go to get help. But we're talking about things like depression and anxiety and sex and relationships and love and just all the really cool, fun things about life. I'm Cassie, and I am a dance fitness instructor. I am a mindset coach. Actually, I call it mental fitness. So I really get a mental fitness routine for your brain. And I also do a emotion code healing. And so that's kind of my genre. And I want to kick it over to either Sarah or Genevieve. One of you want to jump in and introduce yourself?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sarah, do you want to go? Oh, okay.
Either.
So I'm hey guys, I'm Genevieve Travis, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker who practices as a clinician, a therapist for children and families, and I've been doing that for a long time. And I have an attachment expertise, and I love just supporting kids and families. It's like, certainly just what I do, but it translates to so many more areas of one's life. And so it's really cool to be here talking with these ladies and really kind of digging into difficult things together. It just really is. It's nice because it's necessary, I think. And we're just giving people more permission to talk about hard things, which is really important.
Yeah.
I forgot to say my name. That was a good call, Genevieve.
Oh,
Seal, by the way. Well done.
I know, right?
good morning.
Yeah, we do this in the morning, so don't expect high expectations.
Well, it's
Fine.
what's so funny is I was judging myself for saying my name. I was like, oh, I'm so formal. It's like I'm introducing myself for the first time on Zoom.
I know, right? Exactly. I know. I was like, if it's your first time listening, we've done intros before, but yeah, if it is your first time listening, you need to hear an intro. So yeah, welcome. Yeah, my name is Sarah Placencia. And yeah, so I'm a little bit similar with Cassie. We have a background in fitness, and I've been teaching classes going on 17 years. Oh my gosh. I know. I was like doing the math. I was like, wait, 2007 or 16. I don't know. It's something like that. But it's been a lot. So
you're not even old enough to do that, right?
I know, right? I'm only 20.
No.
I'm only 20. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I'm 40, guys. Let's put it out there. It's okay.
Yeah.
I know. I've accepted it.
You look phenomenal for 40.
You're so sweet. Well, you guys are so sweet. Like attracts like. So I think like you ladies, I'm like, yeah, no, seriously. And yeah, it's been, I know, right? Especially this early in the morning.
I know.
But it's been fun. And I feel like, we do these talks and, it is to help people. But honestly, I'm like, I'm helping myself because you guys are
Totally
amazing individuals. And I learn so much every time we chat. And I'm just thankful that, reach out, have community. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. The biggest takeaway is like, even if you are trying to get healthy in the mind, especially in the mindset, your community is so crucial and vital.
Really.
And sometimes we don't have that. And so that's why it does take, getting outside your comfort zone, listening to something, you wouldn't normally listen to, or commenting even like on this video or wherever you found it, and just, be your friend. Like, I think that's what's important.
We're fun. That's the
We're
point.
fun. Like, let's be friends. Yeah, that's the whole point of this. Like, we're just trying to make friends.
Yeah, so I'm always telling my teenagers this. I have teenage sons, and I'm always like, "Don't you know how fun I am?" Like they're like always mortified at the things I'm doing, and I'm like, "But don't you know how fun I am?" And they're like, "You're not fun."
You're like, I'm
I'm
so
so hype. That's the new thing. I'm always like, "Oh, that's so cringe," and my son's like, "No, mom, that's not. You're not using it right." But I purposely do it wrong.
right? Oh my gosh, I love that. I know there's so many words that like it's such a fast thing too, where it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like where did this language come from?
I know.
So
I'm like, wait, could you repeat that? Because you just said 7 words that I don't think that I understood. I don't know what you're talking about.
so true. My husband's a gamer and he's on Twitch, and so he's like, "Oh, bro, that's so sus," and I'm like,
I
"What?"
love it. Oh man, it's so
Yeah,
sus. It's like one of
yes,
my favorites. I
like,
forgot about that one.
and I say that now, and probably next week it's like not even cool. So I don't even know what
Totally.
to say now. But I'll hear him say certain words, and I'm like, "Who are you? Like,
Yeah.
what is happening?" But I love it.
Totally.
He keeps
It's
me.
really funny too to hear my 6 year. So I have a 6 year old as well. I forgot to say I'm a mom. That's something that I stepped away from. And I think part of it is because I used to just be like, "Hi, I'm Cassie Steele. I'm a stay-at-home mom." And that's how I
Right.
introduced myself. And what I actually realized in my process of like healing and growing into my business is that that's just a piece of what I do. It's not necessarily
Totally.
who I am. It's like a part of me. So I stopped introducing myself. So then now I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I have kids. I do love them.
Yeah.
I didn't mention them, but I do love
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
really taken me a long time to acknowledge that, I'm not just because I think a lot of moms say that I'm just a stay-at-home mom or I'm just a, wife or mom, like as if that's some role that shouldn't be acknowledged because that's a huge role. So, but anyways, my
Totally.
point being my 6 year old, I have a 6 year old as well as two 15-year-olds. Like he's always like, bro, like, I mean, he even has like the tones of the teenage and even the eye rolls. And I'm like,
Oh
oh
wow.
my goodness, I'm raising a 16-year-old in a 6 year old's body.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what is happening? It's
Oh,
crazy.
I know that's so
Well, what's so cool about that is that, well, really it's modeling and it's
Mhm.
experience. Like that's,
funny.
your 6-year-old's experience around your other children is this is how we talk and this is what we do. And so, that shapes the self, like experience shapes the self, which is really interesting in how we express ourselves. So,
That is a
um,
great segue, Genevieve. I like that.
yeah,
Love
So
it.
that is
yeah,
something you're going to talk about today. So thank you, Genevieve. She's very good at that. The segue into what the discussion. And I think what's cool is to have Genevieve here with her expertise in the things that she does and the attachment pieces and just her background. Sarah and I are like, we don't know what we call it, but this is what what it is like to us. And then Genevieve's like, oh, this is, and she has a cool word for it, and we love that. So
Mhm.
I'm all about the words and learning new things, and I think Sarah is too. So we
yeah.
love to have you here, Genevieve. Thank you for
Oh,
being.
well,
Yeah.
thanks for having me. And if it gets annoying, you just,
Oh,
I,
not
I,
at all. I
I
love it.
just, I just want to, I want to show up and be a
Yeah,
support. So yeah,
I love it.
how I am, which is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is you show up perfectly. Like, yeah, no apologies.
By
I
the
Right.
way, I love your haircut. Like we were talking about that before we went live. It's so cute. Genevieve got a
agree.
haircut and we just love it. It's
Yeah,
adorable.
it
This
is.
is
Adored,
like the
I'd say.
This is
So
like
fun.
one of the best. This was one of the best haircuts I've gotten. I think I love pixies and I
Mhm.
can pull them off.
Mhm.
And this is one of the better ones. I'm like, I love this haircut. I want it. I want it to stay this cute forever. And that never happens.
Need
I
like
know, right?
the 360 video, like have Nolan
Yeah.
walk around your face.
Yeah,
Like, okay, this is how I want it again. Like
yeah.
every time you go get your
Exactly like
haircut.
this. Each
Exactly.
piece of hair should lay just so.
But yeah.
I love that when you get a good haircut or like a good color, like sometimes I'll get highlights and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best color. And then I go back like, to get a touch up and I'm like, it doesn't look the same.
Oh
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
It's
you're like
frustrating.
disappointed. Isn't it funny how we like the outside, like, when something's different, we're so fascinating as human beings that we can notice these little intricacies of like
Totally.
how things are different.
Mhm.
Yes.
But Sarah was asking like how the trip was. So this week here in Oklahoma is spring break. And speaking of intricacies, I had a really crazy experience on the mountain. So we went to Angel Fire, New Mexico, which is beautiful. I know Genevieve, you said you've been there, right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
I was blown away. It's this small little like mountain town. The people are so great, like very tiny. I don't even think the population is like 1,200. It's less than
Yeah.
1,200.
It's really small.
Crazy. I'm like, shh, don't tell anyone, YouTube. Don't
Yeah.
tell anyone because it's going to get overcrowded.
Right.
Um,
Aw.
no, it was just really amazing. But we went to take our boys snowboarding, and um, I was nervous. So I grew up in Colorado, and so um, when you live in Colorado, like you don't ski and snowboard really that often because it's just crazy busy. And so you try to do it when you can, but it's also like a convenience. So I think I just didn't take advantage of it because you just are like, oh, I have time to do it later.
Mm.
So I did learn to ski and snowboard, but it's been probably 15 years since I snowboarded or skied.
Wow.
And I was so nervous. And I told my husband, I was like, I really feel like I need a lesson. Like we made our boys take ski school and they snowboarding school. And I'm like, I should probably take a lesson because I am 43. My husband's 53. We're both
Right.
athletic, but I'm like, I do not want to fall down the mountain, like at all.
Right.
Hmm.
And so like we battled back and forth. And so we checked the kids in, and then my husband's like, let's just get a private lesson. Like then that way you don't feel like
Nice.
because I was like, what if it's really boring? And because I have ADHD, I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. So we did like a little 2 hour lesson, and our instructor was phenomenal. Shout out to Damon. He was very knowledgeable, super great skills. But what I want to share about like the whole thing about humans noticing intricacy, when I was on the mountain, I didn't notice it until after I got off and started thinking about my process and like what I was doing. He was so great about teaching me in my language what I should be doing because it was really hard. I had a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
fear. So speaking of the self, right? We talked about ego last week or the last time we met. I think we skipped a week. The fear was so great. And I had so many doubts and so many worries running through my mind. I almost like just quit within the first 15
Mm.
minutes of the instruction. So I'm like sitting on the mountain and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do it. Like my brain was just going a million miles a minute because you're sitting up there and you're like, this is scary. I'm on the side of a mountain. It's really tall. I'm not going to tell you I was on the bunny slope. That was where I first had so much fear.
Oh,
So
Okay.
I'm like panicking, and I tell the instructor, I'm like, I'm not sure I can do this. And he's like, you've got this. He's like, I'm right here. This is my job. Like, I'm going to make sure that you understand, like, I'm going to keep you safe. And I'm like, okay. And my husband's there, and he's like, he gets up on the board and he's just like, oh yeah, it's like a bike. I'm like, of course he would get up on and just be like, it's like a bike. And I was so thinking it was going to be that way for me, but
mhm.
he like we're probably an hour in and he's teaching me little things, but I just can't seem to like stay up. Like I just keep falling forward or backward. And he goes, you need to relinquish control. And I was like, what? I started to panic just saying the words. I was like, relinquish control. And he's
Yeah.
like, let the mountain do what it does. And I'm like, okay. And so, of course, then at this point, he's speaking my language. I'm like, okay, the spiritual healing part of me is kicking in. I'm like, okay, tell me more about the mountain needs to be. I'm like, tell me about that. And he's like, you can't control the mountain. The mountain is what it is. And he's like, this is a volcano and it's thousands of years old and it's what it is. And so you need to let it
Hmm.
take you and
Yeah.
then relinquish it, or he said, and then take a little bit of control back to kind of guide yourself and then let the mountain have some and then take it back. And I'm like, I don't even know what he means by that, but I'm going to just try. And I'm
Oh.
like, I'm scared to like lose control. And so he goes, you know what? We're gonna go on the bigger mountain. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't even stand up. And he goes, listen, you're a mindset coach, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, if you want to have a different result, we got to do something different. We need to go faster. I was like, I haven't even gone
Yeah.
anywhere. It was like the craziest thing.
Wow.
So
That's
I'm like, okay, he's now speaking my language though. So I'm like, okay, this is what I'm telling my clients all the time. You got to do something different to get different results. And I'm like, all right. I said, I trust you. I'm going to go on the bigger mountain.
yeah.
So we go over there. And of course, all of my children all of a sudden show up from their lessons. So here I am on display in my fear. So then I'm very aware, like, oh my gosh, I'm teaching. Now I have to show up because like I can't let my kids see that I'm afraid.
Mm.
But like in that moment, I was like, no, this is okay. If they see me fall, if they see me fail, it's okay. I can be fearful. I can let things happen how they're supposed to happen.
Mm.
He turns to me and he says, tune into the frequency of the mountain, tune into the frequency of the snow and relax, let go. and allow your body to just like, and I'm like, how does he know those are the words I use in my practice? Like, I'm like, he knows. So he's like stalking me, like in my brain.
Mhm.
So I get up
Mhm.
and I'm like so aware that there's so many people flying past me and I'm feeling really like inferior. And I'm like, I gotta trust. I gotta trust that he knows what he's doing. I gotta let go of control. He gets me up on my feet. And I literally, I'm not kidding, I floated on my board down the mountain, like as if I was like, not, wasn't my first time. I mean, there were moments of like unsurety and like, I don't think that's what
Yeah.
making it a word. But they call it leafing. So he was like, look at you. He's like, I like what you're doing. Your hips are pointing your directions. He's like telling me what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I just tuned into like allowing, like just letting go.
Hmm.
It was so interesting because my body, I could feel the intricacies of the mountain and when things would be off a little or shift and like how my body would just automatically do what it needed to do as soon as I let go of control.
Mhm.
So I make it down the mountain. All my kids are watching. I was like, whew, I didn't like, because I really didn't want them to give up. I had one of my sons that was about to give up too. And I was like, I can't. Like, I got to show them that it's okay to be afraid, but it's also okay to just try. So I make it down the mountain and I was like so proud and I was celebrating. My kids were like, look at you, Mom, you did great. And they were all proud of me.
Mhm.
But what I found so interesting is when I did tune in and just let go of the fear, I didn't have to do anything. Like
Yeah.
it just came. And
Yeah.
Jenny, you probably know more about like snowboarding and skiing, but it was the coolest experience I've ever had. Like
Yeah.
I I don't know. It taught me so much about my life and how I'm so controlling with I want to have things be safe
Yeah.
and you can't control that. And it was a
Yeah.
good to let go, but it was so scary.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. It's so
I
cool.
do too. I so just kind of in connection with the book we're reading,
Mhm.
like the fact that you I mean he like totally speaking the language and the idea of like really like a lot like letting go of your conscious mind driving
Hmm.
and allowing your unconscious mind to drive like you let go, you tuned in,
Mhm.
you weren't conscious, you weren't stuck
Mhm.
in that prefrontal cortex or that forebrain, which really only controls about 5 to 10%
Yeah.
of our thought, right? Our unconscious brain is doing so much. And when he talks about in the book, when he talks about this kind of the capacity to sort of let go and allow your unconscious mind to drive,
Yeah.
because that's where creativity and that's where creativity comes from, and the ability to kind of just be engaged. It's that's so neat. That's what you did
Yeah.
on the mountain, Cassie. Like you were like, okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop having my prefrontal cortex drive the bus. I'm
Yeah.
gonna like, and he coached you how to do that, and you did a great job. That's really amazing. What a cool experience.
It
How
was so
neat.
cool. And I
Mhm.
did do a little, I'm sure I sounded crazy going down, like I am the mountain and the mountain is me. Like I just kept saying that out loud.
No, that's
And
awesome.
I was just like, and so I love that you connected it with that because I'm actually now realizing that I have some healing to do for myself because
Yeah.
we then took the next day, well, sometime during the week, we took the kids to Taos, New Mexico, which is beautiful. Like it's crazy how different each town can look. But we went to the Rio Grande Gorge, Royal Gorge, or whatever.
Oh, so beautiful, right?
It's so
Amazing.
beautiful and so scary. So
Yes.
I learned all this stuff about me and my fear. Like I have so much fear. So they go walking out. Like I first of all I had our little dog in my arms and she was like panicking. I was like, bro, chill out. We're okay. I've got you. But I was like, okay, I gotta put her back because she's making me nervous. And so the other part of like that bridge, the first thing I see as I walk up to it is the little suicide box. Like they have this box
Mm-hmm.
that says,
Mm-hmm.
there's still
Yeah.
hope, call this number. Like I love
Yeah.
God. There's all these little stickers all over it. And so of course then I'm like emotional. Then I'm like, oh my gosh. I started tuning into that energy and I was like, okay, calm down, Cassie, like breathe. There's a lot of stuff about me that's like, I have to really control my energy because I'm very empathic, but I'm also very like, I have such a big heart and I have so much compassion for people almost too much so to where I start to get into this like, oh my gosh, I can feel all the emotions that people have had on this bridge. And there's like these, like gravestones for people that have jumped. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just started spiraling in the fear. And so I'm like walking out there, my family's in the middle of the bridge, and I'm like, I'm not going out there. And then my one son's like, hold on to the bar, mom. And I'm like, what do you mean? Is something going to happen? Like I'm panicking. And he's like, just hold on to because there's like a rail. This huge truck comes flying by and the whole bridge like shakes and like waves. And I'm like, what is this? So I'm like, I'm out, I'm gone. So I run back. My kids are all laughing at me because I'm like,
should have worn my brown pants.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm like, what is wrong with this bridge? So there was a lot of like interesting things about, and I love that you brought up the prefrontal cortex because that is where I live a lot of the time because I think I do a lot of like the work we do is very, I don't want to say it's taxing because it's not taxing. I don't know I'm not sure what word I would use, but it's like you're always in this space of worrying and caution, right? Like it's this cautious.
I think that grows after you become a mother.
Yeah, that's true.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think you're right, Sarah. I think that that desire to stay more in one's head, and really protect against fear and be safety oriented really does come. Like there's a flip that gets switched. Like I used to think I'm definitely skydiving and I'm definitely bungee jumping and then I had a kid and I was like, no, probably not.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to take unnecessary risks. So yeah, I do agree with that. But I also think that people that are very intuitive and very much actually in attuned with their subconscious mind can actually, like, because it is so overwhelming to kind of live in that place a lot of the time, and feel a lot from that area of the brain, that they can get very cerebral and very like much stuck in logic and reason and because and also I think that fear drives a lot of behavior as well, and fear drives our limiting beliefs, and so it is really important to just be aware, like, is this fear rational or irrational? Like, and how is this fear serving me? Because fear is important. It's important to pay attention to it. But if you're constantly operating in a state of fear, it's very difficult to access your subconscious and let the creative or success mechanism do what it needs to do. Does that make sense to everybody?
That
Sorry.
makes absolute sense. I think you hit the nail on the head because I think that's a place that it was interesting because I was working through the fear this weekend. I was thinking about why am I so fearful of these situations? And as I was on vacation, I started a new book called Radical Awakening, and she was talking about how I don't really know what she like, but she was just talking about different scenarios, which led me to wonder about my childhood. And I was like, was I not, because I know my parents. My parents are great parents. Like they kept me safe and they fed me and they loved me. And like I had a very loving childhood. We had some like traumatic events because I had a brother who was in and out of things. But I feel like I had a pretty safe childhood, but the way I respond or react in situations, you would think that I was a child that was abused or something or that I wasn't kept safe or that my parents weren't very, loving. So I think you're hitting the nail on the head, Genevieve, about, that being intuitive, because I've always had that knack as a child to be very connected. And so I think I've learned a safe way to live, not to feel overwhelmed and like,
yes,
like almost like I'm drowning. That's the only way I can explain it. The emotions make me feel like I'm drowning in public.
Totally.
Which is something to experience. And like the people watching you, like my kids watching me having that emotion, like I was almost in tears. Like I walked probably a third of the way out of that bridge, and there was so much emotion coming from that space because of all the things that had happened there. Like it's almost like I can feel and live through spans of time of things that have happened. and not intentionally. So like I quickly shut my energy field down and I was like, listen, you got to calm down. You're safe. You have a higher power that is, connected to you and you're not going anywhere. You're not here for that. Like you just got to relax. And I just could not, the emotions on that bridge were so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Also, I'm a little bit afraid of heights, a little bit. I actually really like heights, but I don't like to feel out of control. And Genevieve, if
Yeah.
you've been there, right? So the railing is like see-through.
Yes.
So it's
Yep.
like a solid wall where you're like standing and feeling sturdy. There's like a space where your feet could go through and there's
yes.
it's just not, it's not like, I'm sure it's probably an experience and people that love heights probably enjoy it. Like my kids were like throwing rocks up and they're like, Mom, there's bighorn sheep down here, and like having a blast. And like every time a truck comes by, they're laughing and giggling. And I'm like, why is this fun for them? Like this is not fun at all. But I just was, when they came back, I was explaining, they're like, Mom, what's wrong with you? Like, because they're teenagers, they don't know, they don't understand, like, to be soft and gentle. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm like, I can feel a lot of emotion here. And so I started explaining to them. And then, of course, there's like dates on some of the graves. And like one of them was like April 9th, 2020. So in my head, I'm processing, oh my gosh, this person probably thought the world was ending. And so this is what their escape was. So I'm overthinking it. I'm logically reasoning what's going on. And the whole experience this week, though, was really cool for me to see that fear is most of the time irrational. Like most of the time, fear is nothing. We are thinking about something that could happen, but it's probably not ever going to happen. Like 99.9% is probably not going to happen. The fearful things that I was thinking, like being on the mountain, being on the bridge, just these crazy, like I probably could have fallen end over end down the mountainside, but I probably wouldn't have. Like I probably would have fallen on my face or fell on my butt and I would have been fine. And so that was kind of what I had to do, is walk myself through that. And I think that where we as humans, we don't often do that. When we're in that moment of fear, we are like, oh God, I'm just done. And we just quit and whatever it is, or we step back, or we just don't show who we really are, like show the self, because showing that piece of us is scary. Like just being in that spotlight is scary.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very true.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me as you're telling it, because I had just got back from a trip too, and talking about like fear and like the unknown. And we actually, so ours was very much in nature too, but on the waves. And I just love riding the waves. Like as a kid, I would be out there for 8 hours, and I just remember always like almost falling asleep at dinner, and I'd close my eyes and I'd wake up because I thought I would see a wave hit me, and I remember doing that as a child. And so as an adult, I'm like, I'm in my happy place. And so I would go out and just ride the waves. And my friend Samantha, she was like, I don't know, it's like scary. These are huge. The red flag is up. I was like, I know the red flag is up. Like, I was like, that's amazing. Like we're gonna have good waves. And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, well, we'll just get past the break and then it'll be fine. And she's like, really? And so I was like, yeah, we'll just like float and a wave won't carry us over. And she's like, what? And I was like, trust me. I was like, so we got over the big part, and I was like, there's so much salt, just like, let's float. And so I like held her hand and I was like, just let go. And like, we actually floated, and like, I was like, just keep your eyes closed because you're going to feel like the wave come, and you take an inhale and then exhale, and maybe it'll kind of like wash over you, but usually it doesn't. Like it was just like you would ride it. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And we're like holding hands, and it was just such a spiritual moment of like releasing control. So it's it's like, yes, like especially in nature, like I feel like, yeah, we're just trying so hard to like control things, and it's like, oh my gosh, but it like we're safe. It's gonna be okay. Like totally. I don't know. And until like, I mean, I was used to that, you know what I mean? So I was really proud of her because like, she wasn't in the ocean a lot growing up, I mean, it's something too where I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so proud of you. Like that's, I mean, she was able to do it and really enjoyed it. And, same thing with you. Like, that's awesome. 15 years is a long time to not like, get outside your comfort zone like that. Like,
well, and I love that you brought the ocean, because I think that there is something so similar about I mean, I know they sound like night and day, like the mountain with the snow and the ocean with the waves, but I think that that's really cool because what you guys did is actually a meditation that I do a meditation
Mm-hmm.
where we basically ride the waves of the emotions. And so, and I think a lot of people, like I've heard this meditation many times. And that's why I do it now, because I love it. But it is the same thing. It's basically you imagining yourself in the ocean, and then you think about the time where you had like an huge emotional event come, and it's like this wave, and you just have to ride the wave and let yourself just kind
Mm-hmm.
of get over it. And that's how emotions should really be processed, is just letting the wave come. It's like not stopping the wave. You'll never be able to stop the wave, especially emotions. You know, if the wave is
Mm-hmm.
the emotion, you're never going to be able to stop it. Let it come, let it ride, and then everything will even out. And then it's just like this. So that's beautiful. So if there's anyone here that is having a hard time with their emotions, I think that what Sarah just explained is a beautiful way to explain, to just let it kind of like relax and ride into it. And even having someone's hand to hold during that time. Like I
Yes.
think we talked on here about the 8-minute friend, like having someone that
Yeah.
you really should have an 8-minute friend where you can be like, hey, text someone, I need 8 minutes. I'm having a freak out. And like, can you hold my hand for, 8 minutes? And that's beautiful that you guys did that. And so, Sarah, I will need you to hold my hand if we ever go to a big wave.
Oh,
I
yes.
love the ocean, but again, my fear
Yeah.
always sinks in. But then once I get past it, I'm like, okay, I'm having fun. If this is
Yeah.
great.
Totally.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
Sure. And
Totally.
I'm fearful in, other ways too. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
like, oh, it was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it
Well, and
definitely, yeah, important to acknowledge. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's the beauty of having community too, is that, and having people that you really trust who can guide you through, maybe a scary or fearful experience, and sort of like support you in that process of letting go and guide you. I think that can be really, really beneficial. And I think it's really critical sometimes to have someone guide us. So, that's, a lot of times it's a family member, a friend, or it's a spouse, or it's a clinician. But, having people guide us through, but both riding the waves and riding the slope of the big
Yeah.
things in our lives, that can, that can really project us in the direction of our goals, and so like these limiting beliefs, sometimes it's helpful to have somebody
Mhm.
be the voice that sort of adjusts that sort of tape or recording that we have, that this is scary, or the worst case scenarios that creep in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Kind of like, yeah, you had your guide and yeah, having Samantha there and it was just cool.
you
Yeah.
Our
you
synapses.
you
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
you well, Sarah, you did that for Samantha, and how beautiful that you were able to do that. But I imagine that there's some way in which myself or Samantha or Cassie could hold your hand and support you in a process that might be scary. And the same, Cassie, like, having that person speak your language, like, you're
Yeah.
like, how does this guy know this? Well, he's
Yeah.
probably a mindset worker. Like, he probably has been doing a lot of mindset work himself, and he recognizes that mindset is, probably 90% of the battle in getting to tackle the mountain, and so, but just so neat to have these people that show up that can garner our trust and our respect, and that can allow us and guide us through,
Yeah.
our limiting beliefs, really, essentially, um
I think
so
they're almost like the detour of our synapses because we think a
yeah,
thing and it goes to here and then that's when
yeah,
fear is like fed because it's like,
yeah,
oh, I
yeah,
always assume or this is my familiar even though it's unsafe. It's like it's my familiar, so I
yes,
stay in that fear, and I think like yeah, we want
exactly,
that community to be like, I'm just gonna put a detour sign right here.
totally,
You can't stay in this
totally,
area. We're gonna
Yeah.
reroute you over here.
Yep. I
That's
love that.
totally,
EPO signs
yes,
are great. Well, and I
yeah,
really believe, and I think the book, we're reading this book right now for those of you that don't know. And if you're here, we would love for you to drop hashtag replay or hashtag live. If you're here watching this video live, we would love to know that you're here and where you're from too, just sharing pieces of our listeners, because I think that's the best part of doing what we do is being online. We get to meet so many people from all over the world.
Yeah.
But in the book, he talks about, and even Edison, I think, has said this, that, you know, it's like when you let go, it's like everything is out there in the universe for us to just grab onto and have. And all we have to do is just lock into that frequency and let go of our subconscious, let go of that processing. Like there are things that keep us safe, but there are also things that keep us limited. And so, like, you know, the guy showing up, you know, the specific instructor showing up is like
Yeah.
that frequency. You know, I was not that I was open to the idea. So it's like that's where it starts, right? Is being open to the processing. It's being open to doing something different. And then the universe will just feed you things that you need on that path. And that's like, it seems that you're lucky or like things are working out. You know, I think he talked about that in the book too, but um there really is like this unseen like pathway that would just kind of lights up as
Yes.
you start to say yes. And I think
Yes. Yeah.
even the scary things, right? Like even when you're like, okay, I don't really want to do this, but I know that it's going to be good for me and I'm going to grow. Yes. And then it's like,
Hmm.
oh, and then the right people show up or the right things, the right
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
kudos
really
on you.
powerful.
Yeah. And kudos on you to say, like, I think I might need a lesson. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's being
Totally.
being vulnerable allows you to now grow, you know? So it's always like if you feel
Totally.
inadequate or if you feel like lost, not knowing what to do, again, that's why there's guides in life. Like the
Yeah.
best movie,
Totally.
Yeah.
like think about Star Wars. There's always a guide.
Right. That's
Totally.
true. That's
Yes.
You
true.
know,
That's very true. Yeah.
Yes. He was the
Yeah.
Yoda of my mountain.
Yeah. There is no imperative whatsoever. In fact, the imperative is the opposite. There's no imperative whatsoever to go through life and do things alone
Yeah.
and tackle things alone and accomplish things alone. And, you know, in fact, the biological imperative is that we don't, that we are connected and we do not do this process in a vacuum and alone.
Yeah.
And I think like they're like being open to the guides that are that are offered to us, by the universe or whatever, like whatever we believe, like
Yeah.
things like being open to that is really critical. But there's nothing that says, and it's really actually limiting to believe that we should do things alone, that we can do things in a vacuum without like input and
Yeah.
it's like really important to recognize that we are biologically, like we are, it is our pure survival is based on being able to have connection and support and interface with people that's feeding and supportive and guiding and
Yeah.
facilitates our process.
And I think it's really important what you just said too, is like whatever language that you feel connected to, whether it like be God or spirit, universe, guides, whatever your belief. So the three of us here, we all believe that everyone is not wrong and everyone is right, because we don't really know like the truth of everything. And so I
No.
think it's really important to let people have whatever experience they need to have based on whatever language
Yes.
that you need to use, right? Like so the three of us, I think, have had very different backgrounds and very different upbringings and very different, like, not even, I don't even say we have necessarily different beliefs. I just think that we all have our own way and each of us respects each other to let
Yes.
each of us have our own way. And that's okay. And I think if the whole world could live like that, like if we could all just kind of
Wouldn't that be
like,
beautiful?
yeah, like let everyone believe what they need to believe for the moment that they're in, because really that's all we have is this one moment here with each other. And why spend it fighting and arguing about who's right about what? Because we don't really know. Like that's
Yeah.
where I'm coming from. Like I don't really know what the truth is. I don't think that I'll ever probably know. But what I'm going to opt for is that everyone should have the opportunity to work through whatever it is their journey is going to be. And
Yeah.
however you do that, I honor and I respect that. And I think for me, I learned so much watching other people go through their own journeys too in their own belief systems and being open and being free to love in a way that is with truly without judgment, is truly unconditional love. Like to say the words unconditional and love together doesn't even really make any sense because love is not conditional. It shouldn't be, but I know sometimes it is, right? So like unconditional love is just accepting.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, bless you.
I had a little tickle. I was like, I'm gonna die. But no, I just wanted to say I appreciate you talking about the language part of it, that whether it's universe, spirit, God, whatever language you use, your guides are out there somewhere. There are either
Yeah.
people or spiritual, whatever it is, there are things and people and places that are calling your name. And I hope that we've helped today. Like I know it's already 7:30. I hope we've helped today, and that I know I told a lot of stories, but I think they led to good conversations for us to talk about our fears and our
Yeah.
yeah, just our allowing and trusting and opening to what could be. Really, I think is where we want to go with this, is like allowing yourself to trust people and to trust situations or new experiences really leads to massive growth.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
And that's what's
and
hard too. 'Cause
Harvey.
I feel like, yeah, I know Harvey's. Hi, mom.
Here
He
I am,
really wants to
Mom.
go outside right now. But yeah, I think that's where it's important to understand, like, just because are you throwing up on me? It's like, what are you doing? Anyway, yeah, you're all right. So I just think it's important to understand that, like, to give people, chances. Like, I think sometimes we bring in past trauma and past relationships to future ones, and then we're like, well, I'm not going to get burned again. I'm not going to open up to this person, or I'm not going to ask for help again, or
Yeah.
I think that's where it's really hard to understand that you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with change, be okay with vulnerability. Obviously, sometimes it does take somebody outside your circle in order to have that growth. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's important to reiterate, because I think sometimes they're like, people take past experiences and they're like, well, I'm just going to continue this cycle. So no, I'm
Yeah.
going to put myself off to people. And I think, I've kind of done that in the past. And, Cassie's, you kind of have a huge heart wall. I'm like, I know, I'm trying to bust through it. And because I can be stubborn in that way. I remember one of the last story, but even just like being put in the corner, for, probably being too loud or something like that. I don't know. It was something where I would always be told then after 5-10 minutes, you can get out of the corner. And I'm like, no, I'm staying here. I'll show them. And they're probably like, oh, good. Yeah, stay there.
They're like, yeah.
And so it's like, you have to understand, like, your stubbornness, it will keep you stuck. And so it's okay to reach, further outside of it. And I think some of, like, my closest friends, like you guys, like, it's people online. It's people that I've met because I've, was willing to, like, go outside my comfort zone and have relationships with people that aren't in my circle, my physical circle, and I think we all feel that too, because we are on this online space. And we start to see, like, wow, I can grow with people that aren't in my backyard. And I think that's where it's important too, to reach out to people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
a
But I
side note-
definitely, I was just, can I say something real quick, Cassie? But I would like for you guys to come to my backyard someday.
Oh, yes. I agree.
love that. Yes, we would like that too. I was sort of in your backyard. Like I was close. I
You
was
were.
like 4 or 5 hours away. I was close.
Yep.
I was just gonna say the last story. So I almost feel like it was partly my like ego, my pride was a little bit like I had already planned it, but there was a part of me that was like, am I doing this because I'm like conquering the mountain in my own way? So the last day we were there, I spent like the whole morning, or I guess the second to last day, I spent the whole morning recording dance videos on the bottom of the slope because I was like, this is a beautiful setting. It's amazing. And so I literally like danced for an hour and a half on the side, well, the bottom of the mountain, not the side. And for me, that's not scary. Like I was like dancing and I'm sure that people are like, oh my gosh, she's dancing like out here. I had like, at one point I had just shorts and a t-shirt on because it was so nice. I was like, it's so hot out here. I'm like sweating, dancing, and people were stopping and dancing with me. And like, there were so many connections and it was so beautiful. But like, after I was going back and watching the videos, like reviewing my footage, I was like, people probably were like, oh my gosh, she's so brave. And that's something that comes naturally to me where I'm like, I can do this. In the middle of there was hundreds of people snowboarding and skiing. And
Oh,
I'm out there dancing. And of course, like, because they had music playing, so I couldn't play my own music. So I had my AirPods in. So I look a crazy mess. Like I was playing like, really awesome music for, let's just say, like, but it was not dance music. And so I'm out there dancing to like, hip hop, and like in my ears, it's all this other like
yeah.
throwback music. And so I'm sure people were like, she's not going on the beat. Like, what's she dancing to? Because I had a hat on like most of the time. So you couldn't even see that I had AirPods in. But I didn't even occur to me that I looked silly. I didn't think about it. It was not scary. I've done it so many times. And I think that that was where I wanted to go with this story, is that I have done dance fitness for almost 13 years as well. Like it's not scary for me to be performing. Like it just is fun. I love it. But I've done it so much that that's why it's fun. Now,
Mhm.
if I snowboarded every day, I probably would have a lot more fun
Totally.
practicing it. But I
Yeah,
think that that's really what we need to take away from today's lesson, is practicing pushing past that fear in a safe
totally.
way, right? Like, we're not saying you should go out and do crazy things, but or be assisted if you're going to do crazy things, like have support. But push past it and practice daily something
Yes.
that's fearful,
Yes.
that you can
Yeah,
get out of that prefrontal cortex. Like, it's going
totally.
to be okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
I'm not
Yeah,
telling you to go jump off a bridge or like do any of that. We're not
right.
saying that. We're saying to do
No.
safe things.
No.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Legal
Yeah, and
disclaimer.
Find the
I'm not
waiver
an
below.
and
yeah.
actually and actually just to add to that, Cassie, is that when we start to feel mastery because we start to practice something, it actually has a really empowering effect on us in terms of wanting to master, feeling that, building that confidence to master a new thing. And that is why we like encourage a growth mindset with kids, is because we want kids to work toward mastery and then be willing to work toward mastery again in something else. And you build that sort of capacity or confidence to be able to master something through practice when you do it. Like you don't get that if you don't do it. So
Right.
it's really important. Like you're saying, try something and continue to do it, and then the joy comes in the mastery, in the practice of it, so
And maybe
yeah.
next week we can talk about, I have all three of like the different. So I have my littlest, who is definitely like, I'm going to practice this, because he told us, because he got really good at like the smaller mountain, which smaller, it was huge to me, but to him, he calls it the small mountain. And he was like, I'm going to be good at this one. And then next year, I'm going to go on the green that goes to the top, and then I'm going to
Mhm.
come down. So he was already like preparing in his mind. He was like thinking through the mastery process. And then I have another one who's like really fearful, like me. Like he was
Mhm.
scared of doing it, but he did it anyway. And then like as he did it, he started to get better. So then he's like, okay, I can start working my way up. And then I have one that's like, he did it. He was really like, he picked it up easy. It was no problem. But then the last part of the first day, like after his lesson was over, first thing he does is gets on the Chili Express and rides it to the top to take the blue. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So I'm like texting him. I'm like, you better get off that mountain right now. Cause he has his phone. So like, I'm like, I call him, like, he's like, what's up, mom? I'm like, are you at the top of the blue? And he's like, cause his brother told me he went. His brother was like, I'm not going on a blue. He's like, I've not mastered the green. I'm not going and doing that. And then I'm like, are you on a blue? And he's like, yeah, I feel fine. I'm going to do it. And I was like, but you didn't ask me. This is something we should have talked about. And I'm
Oh
like
my
freaking out. And he's like, mom, I can do it. I'm like, and in that moment, I'm like, well, I shouldn't tell him that he can't. But I'm also like in my
Right,
fearful
right.
parenting brain, I'm like, this doesn't feel safe to me. But I'm like, he's already up there. It's too late. Like, you can't get down unless you take it. So my husband's like,
Yeah,
he's gonna be okay. We're here. There's ski patrol. Like, don't worry. He's
yeah,
like, I trust that he will. If he needs help, he's gonna ask for it. I'm like, okay. So like we're watching him, and there's not very many people because it's the end of the day. They close at 4. And you can see him, and he's like this little tiny person, like coming down the middle of this. It's a wide blue, so it's not like narrow. And blue, for those of you that don't know, blue is like the medium. But he's like coming down, and he falls one time, and I'm like, oh God, he's fallen. He's not gonna be able to get down. Like my pre I was just going crazy. Because he's my baby. He's like my first child. And I'm like, I gotta get you down the mountain. And so he gets up, he comes, he does a great job. And I was like, okay, this is now my parenting lesson. I have to know that they have to try things, but also we had a conversation about mastery. So
Yes.
like
Yeah.
you should probably have mastered the green a little bit longer. Like we only spent
Yeah.
a little bit of time on the green. We don't just jump to the blue. And he was like,
Yeah.
I realized I probably shouldn't have gone on it. And so he had his own realization, but it was a scary thing to like let
Yeah.
go in parenting too.
Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
are those people that are like, I can do this. I got it. I'm just going to go to the hard one. It's fine.
Oh, I might have done something like
Yeah.
that.
I was going to say,
Totally.
Sarah, I think
Yeah.
Sarah's probably one of
I
those
think
people.
Sarah's
Yeah.
Sarah is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably gave my
It's
parents
all
heart
good.
attacks.
I love it.
Yeah. It's okay. We can all learn from each other. Like,
Yes.
that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
So, well, thank you,
Exactly.
ladies.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah,
you.
it was so good to chat and like catch up
Yeah.
too. I so
So
appreciate it.
Yes.
and next week we have a guest speaker. So Jim Rome is going to be our guest speaker. He's going to talk about assisting in grief and basically sharing his experience with us about how he walked his friend through stage 4 cancer and how he held, the family kind of like, I don't want to say, well, I want him to say his own words. So I'm going to let him explain what he did, but he's got a lot of great tips. He's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. He has a book that he's working on getting published. It's finished, but he needs a publisher. So if you know anyone, that would be great. But he has 34 years in teaching and administration. So he is very knowledgeable when it comes to teaching and speaking and has a very great way he processes information. So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
That's great. Yay.
I'm excited for that too.
So tune in next week for grief and how to work through it. And we'll have a lot of fun. I think you ladies will enjoy Jim as well. So
Yay. Wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks for getting that set up. I think it'll be fun.
Well, I have had so much fun today, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.